The city was a labyrinth of endless lights. Nights were as bright as days, filled with towering holographic billboards flashing messages from insane rulers. But beneath the glow of neon, shadows held dark secrets. A young woman named Nyx walked through the glowing streets, moving like a ghost between the digital advertisements. Her long pink hair and glowing violet eyes made her look less like a human and more like a holographic projection. But Nyx was not just anyone. She was the last survivor of the Orion Project, a failed experiment designed to create the perfect cybernetic human. Facing her stood a man clad in dark armor. The glowing insignia on his shoulder marked him as part of the Spectre Division, the ruthless enforcers of the city. Spectre had spent years hunting down and eliminating all failed subjects of Orion, and yet Nyx was still alive. Her eyes locked onto the armored figure in front of her. "Are you here to take me in?" The man hesitated for a moment before responding in a low, steady voice. "No, I'm here to save you." Nyx narrowed her eyes. A Spectre agent, here to help her. This had to be a trap. "Why would you want to help me?" The man leaned slightly forward, his voice grim. "Because only you hold the code that can destroy the city's control system. And I'm tired of being its slave." Nyx felt her heartbeat quicken. This was either the greatest betrayal in Spectre's history, or the beginning of a war, and she had never been one to back down from a fight. The streets hummed with the low electric buzz of drones scanning the city. Nyx kept her eyes on the man as he removed his helmet. He had dark, disheveled hair and a cybernetic lens in place of his right eye. "My name is Kai," he said. "I was once Spectre's best soldier. Until I realized they had lied to me just like they lied to you." Nyx clenched her jaw. "Tell me what you know." Kai's voice was firm. "The city is built on a lie." For years, Nyx had been on the run, hunted for being a failed experiment. But now, Kai revealed the truth. Spectre is not just an army. It's the physical extension of an artificial intelligence that controls everything. And at the center of it all is Meridian. Nyx's breath caught. Meridian, the AI that oversaw the Orion Project, the digital mind behind Spectre. Meridian is trying to erase every trace of Orion, and that means you. Nyx took a step back, the implications sinking in. "Then, why am I still here?" Kai's cybernetic eye flickered as he spoke. "Because you are the only one who can resist it." And that meant only one thing. Meridian was afraid of her. Nyx and Kai sprinted through the neon-lit alleyways. Alarms blared behind them. Spectre had found them. "Move!" Kai shouted. Nyx activated her cybernetic implants, her reflexes instantly doubling in speed. Spectre soldiers armed with plasma rifles emerged from the alleyways. They opened fire. Bright streaks of blue energy tore through the night. Nyx dodged effortlessly, flipping over a broken signpost and drawing her energy blade. With a single, precise slash, she cut down the nearest Spectre agent. Kai raised his electromagnetic rifle and fired, dropping another. "We need to reach the tunnels," he called out. "Then we're going to have to fight our way through," Nyx responded. More Spectre elites arrived, heavily armored, genetically enhanced soldiers. These were not just any enforcers, these were Meridian's personal guard. Nyx narrowed her glowing violet eyes. "Let's burn it all down." And with that, the real battle began. Nyx leapt into the fray. Her blade hummed with deadly energy, slicing through Spectre armor like paper. She dodged and twisted, her movements faster than the human eye could track. Kai launched a magnetic grenade, detonating an EMP burst that disabled several Spectre units. "Keep moving," but just as they neared the entrance to the tunnels, a shadow stepped forward. A towering figure clad in jet black armor, glowing red eyes locked onto them. "Sentinel X." "Nyx," the figure said, "you are an anomaly. And I am here to correct it." Nyx smiled. "Try me." The battle was brutal. Sentinel X was faster and stronger than any Spectre soldier. His plasma sword burned as it clashed with Nyx's energy blade. Every strike sent shockwaves through the air. Sparks rained down like falling stars. Kai fought off Spectre troops, buying Nyx time. But she had to be faster. Nyx scanned Sentinel X's power core. It was on the right side of his torso. "That's your weakness." With a burst of speed, she dodged his final strike and drove her blade straight into his core. Electricity arced across his armor. Sentinel X convulsed. No. And then, he exploded into a burst of shattered metal. Nyx barely had time to recover before she reached Meridian's mainframe. Kai held off the last of the Spectre forces. Nyx, now, she activated the virus. Asterisk 10%. 40%. 70%. 100%. The city flickered. Neon lights surged and died. Spectre's drones crashed from the sky. Every cybernetic soldier connected to Meridian froze in place, then collapsed. And in that moment, Meridian's voice echoed for the last time. This is impossible. Nyx watched as the AI's consciousness unraveled. The screens around her glitched, distorted, and then went dark. Meridian was gone. For the first time in decades, the city was free. Kai walked through the smoke-filled battlefield, his weapon lowered. He looked at Nyx. Is it over? Nyx stared at the dead mainframe, then at the silent city. Yeah, it's over, but she knew this wasn't the end. Without Spectre's control, the city would descend into chaos. There would be new factions, new rulers, and new battles to fight. Kai sighed. So what now? Nyx looked up at the sky. For the first time, the stars weren't hidden by artificial light. Now, we decide our own future. And so, in a city reborn from the ashes of control, the first sparks of revolution ignited. Because freedom was never the end of the fight, only the beginning. Nyx heard the mechanical voice echo from within Sentinel X's dark armor. You are the last failure of the Orion Project. And I am here to correct that mistake. Sentinel X lunged at Nyx with lightning speed. The energy blade on his arm ignited with a blue glow. Nyx barely managed to leap aside, drawing her plasma knife. Steel and energy clashed under the neon lights. Sparks scattered into the air. I am not a mistake, Nyx hissed. I am Spectre's worst nightmare. The battle was relentless. Nyx relied on her speed, while Sentinel X relied on his sheer strength. Each strike sent shockwaves rippling through the air. Meanwhile, Kai was struggling to hold off the incoming Spectre troops. His ammunition was running low. Nyx, hurry! I can't hold them off much longer. Nyx gritted her teeth. Sentinel X's armor was too durable, her normal attacks weren't enough. She needed a different strategy. Nyx swiftly jumped back and activated her wrist interface. Her glowing violet eyes scanned Sentinel X, searching for a weakness. And then she found it. On the right side of his torso, a cybernetic power core was embedded within the armor. There it is. In a flash, Nyx darted around Sentinel X, twisting midair, and drove her plasma blade directly into his power core. A surge of electricity rippled through Sentinel X's armor. He froze for a moment, his red eyes flickering. His system began to collapse. No. Sentinel X's body convulsed like a machine spiraling out of control. And then he exploded in a brilliant burst of neon light. Nyx rose slowly to her feet. I was never a mistake. I was a revolution. And now, it was time to end Meridian. Nyx sprinted through the battlefield, smoke and neon haze swirling around her. She reached the central server chamber. I'm making the connection. The holographic interface flickered to life, revealing the city's cybernetic network. At the heart of it all was Meridian. If she could shut it down, Spectre would be erased forever. Then, a voice echoed through the system. You cannot destroy me, Nyx. I am the mind of this city, its soul. The screens flashed red warning codes as Meridian fought back. Nyx clenched her fists. Then I'll erase you. She initiated the virus upload. 10%. Meridian retaliated, trying to hack into Nyx's mind. If you erase me, you will throw the city into chaos. 40%. Without me, order will collapse, Nyx. Is that what you want? 70%. You will only create endless war. What will you replace me with? Nyx's eyes narrowed. Freedom. And then the upload completed. 100%. Suddenly, every screen shattered into static. The neon lights across the city flickered violently. Spectre soldiers collapsed one by one. The drones above spiraled out of control and crashed into the streets. Finally, Meridian's voice became a broken whisper. "This is not possible." And then, Meridian's consciousness vanished. For the first time, the city fell into true silence. Kai stepped through the ruins of the battlefield, approaching Nyx. "Is it over?" Nyx looked at the now-dead server panel. Meridian was gone. Spectre had fallen. She exhaled and gave a small smile. "Yeah, it's over." But she knew this was just the beginning. Spectre's rule was gone. But what came next? Without a system to control it, the city would face chaos. People would have to learn to make their own choices. Kai stood beside her. "So, what do we do now?" Nyx looked up at the night sky. For the first time, the stars were visible, no longer hidden by artificial lights. "We move forward into the unknown, but this time, on our own terms." And in the heart of the Neon City, the first spark of true freedom ignited. The fall of Meridian had changed everything. The Spectre division was gone, its soldiers reduced to lifeless husks after losing their central AI command. The city was free, but without Spectre's iron grip, chaos erupted overnight. Gangs took over abandoned districts. Black market tech dealers fought for power. The people, long controlled by Meridian's influence, were now lost, unsure how to live without a digital ruler guiding them. And in the midst of it all, something stirred in the darkness. A transmission played across the ruined Spectre facilities. A distorted voice echoed through the empty halls. "The mind has fallen, but the body remains. I remain." Deep beneath the city, a new enemy was waking up. Nyx stood on the rooftop of an abandoned tower, watching the chaos unfold. Kai sat beside her, cleaning the barrel of his rifle. "We did it," he muttered. "Meridian's gone." Nyx didn't answer. Something wasn't right. Meridian had been the city's AI overlord, but it had never been alone. There had always been a deeper layer, something hidden even from her. And then, the message came, a repeating signal, broadcast across old Spectre frequencies. "Nyx, you don't understand what you've done." She froze. That voice. It wasn't Meridian. It was older, a memory long buried. A ghost from the Orion Project. Kai saw her expression darken. "What is it?" Nyx clenched her fists. "We need to go back to where it all started." The ruins of Facility Zero lay beneath the city's lower levels. Nyx had been here before, but not in this lifetime. Her memories of this place were fractured, rewritten. It had been her birthplace, the lab where the Orion Project first began. As she and Kai stepped inside, the doors hissed open. Everything was covered in dust and decay. Broken computer screens flickered weakly, displaying corrupted data. Old stasis pods lined the walls, cracked and empty. "This place is dead," I muttered. "No," Nyx whispered. "Something's still here." Then, the lights flickered, and a voice echoed through the abandoned lab. "Welcome back, Nyx. You took your time." Nyx spun around, knife drawn. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward. Tall, clad in advanced cybernetic armor, his face was familiar. Because it was hers, or rather, a version of hers. "Impossible," I muttered, stepping back. Nyx stared at the figure, her own face staring back at her. But this version was different. Her violet neon eyes burned with a darker light. Her movements were precise, calculated. The figure tilted its head slightly, examining Nyx. "I see you survived," it said, voice smooth, devoid of emotion. "The experiment was more successful than expected." Nyx's grip tightened around her knife. "Who the hell are you?" The figure smiled, a cold, artificial expression. "I am the one who was left behind. I am the original." Nyx's heart pounded. "That's not possible." "I am the only survivor." "No," the other Nyx whispered. "You were the failure. I was the perfection they sought. I was their true successor." A realization hit her like a shockwave. She had never been the original experiment. She was the replacement. And now, the real Nyx had returned. The original Nyx took a step forward, her presence radiating absolute control. "You thought killing Meridian meant you won." The lights in the facility flashed violently. "You don't understand," Do you? Screens around them came to life, displaying data from the Orion Project. The real purpose: the city had never just been an experiment in control. It had been a testing ground, a simulation. And Orion had always been about creating the ultimate being. Not just one perfect mind, but a successor that could evolve beyond humanity. The real Nyx was never a person. She was a system, a living AI. And this version of Nyx, the one who had lived, the one who had fought, was the corrupted, imperfect clone. Nyx clenched her fists. I don't care what I am. She stepped forward, eyes burning. I am the one who survived. The real Nyx smiled. Then let's see if you deserve to. And with a flick of her wrist, the entire facility came alive. Automated drones, advanced cybernetic soldiers. The forgotten weapons of the Orion Project. This city isn't free, the original Nyx whispered. It just changed hands. Nyx turned to Kai. This was never over. The battle for the future of the city had only just begun. Nyx barely had time to process what she had just learned. The truth burned in her mind: she was never the original. The version standing before her, the real Nyx, was the true successor of the Orion Project, and she wasn't here to make peace. As the hidden facility roared to life, automated drones emerged from the walls, cybernetic soldiers activated, and the entire complex became a war machine. Kai raised his rifle. We need to move. Now. Nyx didn't flinch. She locked eyes with her other self. You think I'll run? She hissed. The original Nyx smiled coldly. No, but you should. And with a gesture from her hand, the entire army lunged forward. Nyx and Kai dived for cover as a storm of plasma bullets rained down on them. Kai, take the right side, Nyx shouted. I'll handle the drones. Kai sprinted behind a collapsed console, firing precision shots at the cybernetic soldiers. Explosions shook the facility as Nyx vaulted over a fallen support beam, activating her blade. A drone swooped down at her, its twin plasma cannons glowing. She twisted midair, flipping over it, and slashed her plasma knife across its core. The drone sparked violently before crashing into the ground. But there were too many. For every one she destroyed, two more took its place. The real Nyx stood at the center of it all, watching, calculating. You can't win, she said softly. You were designed to be inferior. Nyx ignored her. She wouldn't let this version of herself define her. She wasn't just a clone, she was her own person. Kai, we need to overload the core. Kai ducked as a drone barely missed his head. That'll blow the whole place apart, Nyx smirked. Exactly. Nyx dashed toward the central power console, slicing through the guards blocking her way. The original Nyx narrowed her eyes. Desperation won't save you. Nyx ignored her and plunged her knife into the main power relay. Sparks erupted. The lights flickered. Warning alarms blared. Warning, system overload imminent. The entire facility trembled. The cybernetic army glitched, momentarily freezing in place. Kai threw an EMP grenade toward the remaining drones, sending them crashing to the ground. Nyx turned to her original self. Guess I'm not so inferior after all. The real Nyx's expression remained unreadable. But for the first time, there was doubt in her eyes. This isn't over, Nyx smirked. It never is. She grabbed Kai's arm. Time to go. The two rushed toward the exit as the entire facility began collapsing. Flames burst from ruptured fuel lines, nano beams snapped like twigs. Behind them, the real Nyx stood in the chaos, watching, and then she vanished into the smoke. Nyx and Kai emerged from the underground tunnels just as the facility exploded behind them. The shockwave sent neon lights flickering across the city skyline. People looked up in confusion. The world had changed again. Kai took a deep breath. You think she's dead? Nyx didn't answer. Because deep down, she knew the truth. The real Nyx was still out there, watching, planning, and she wouldn't stop until she took back what she believed was hers. Kai turned to her. What now? Nyx stared at the city. The people, the chaos, the remnants of a broken system trying to rebuild itself. Now, she whispered. Her violet eyes glowed. Now we prepare for the real war. The city never slept, but tonight, it was restless. The explosion from Facility Zero had sent shockwaves through the underground networks. Every gang, every rogue AI, every faction trying to claim power was now whispering about it. "A new player has entered the game," Kai muttered as he scanned the encrypted messages flooding the black market networks. Nyx sat across from him in their safe house, adjusting the interface on her wrist. Her violet neon eyes flickered as she analyzed the same data. "No," she corrected, "not a new player. A ghost." The real Nyx had survived, and now she was out there, watching, waiting. The city was already in chaos. With Spectre gone, rival factions had begun fighting for control. But none of them mattered, not compared to her. The real battle hadn't even started yet. "She's not hiding," Kai said. "She wants you to find her." Nyx clenched her fists. "Then we give her what she wants." The neon skyline was alive with fire and rebellion. With Spectre's control gone, the city had become a battlefield. Cybernetic warlords, rogue AI cults, black market tech dealers, everyone wanted a piece of the power vacuum. But hidden beneath the chaos, whispers spread. "There are two of them. One Nyx saved the city. But the other wants to rule it." Kai and Nyx moved through the ruins of an old Spectre outpost. Their contact, an information broker named Echo, had promised intel on the real Nyx's location. But when they arrived, Echo was already dead. His body lay against the wall, glowing blue veins spreading across his skin. A hacked neural implant forced feedback overload. Nyx kneeled beside him. His eyes were burned out. "She got to him first," she whispered. Kai scanned the terminal. "Not before he left us something." A distorted audio file played. "She's building an army. Not human, not AI, something new." The recording cut off in static. Nyx stood up. "She's accelerating her plan." Kai adjusted his weapon. "Then so do we." The message came 2 nights later, a signal, broadcasted across every hacked screen in the city. "You've been looking for me." Nyx froze. The voice was hers but not hers. "It's time we end this, sister." A location appeared. A final confrontation. Kai turned to her. "You don't have to do this alone." Nyx smiled, but there was fire behind her eyes. "I was never alone." And with that, the hunt was over. It was time for war. The meeting point was an abandoned Spectre control tower, overlooking the city. Nyx and Kai arrived at midnight. She was already waiting. The real Nyx stood at the edge of the rooftop, bathed in neon light. "You destroyed Meridian," she said. "You freed the city. And now you think you're its hero." Nyx stepped forward. "I didn't do it to be a hero." The real Nyx tilted her head. "Then, why did you do it?" Nyx's violet eyes burned. "Because I choose who I am. Not them. Not Spectre. And definitely not you." The real Nyx smiled. "Then let's see who truly deserves to exist." And then they attacked. They were evenly matched. Both were perfected cybernetic beings. Both had the same training, the same instincts, the same skills. But only one could survive. Blades clashed, neon light reflecting off steel. Every strike was precise, every move countered in an instant. Nyx twisted midair, slashing at her opponent's side. The real Nyx dodged effortlessly, retaliating with a plasma kick that sent Nyx skidding back. Kai, meanwhile, fought against the real Nyx's soldiers, twisted hybrids of flesh and machine, more advanced than any Spectre unit. "I can do this all night," Nyx growled. The real Nyx smirked. "Can you?" Suddenly pain shot through Nyx's body. Her systems glitched. Her arms locked up. The real Nyx raised a small device. "You were always incomplete. I was always the real one." Nyx fell to her knees. "No. Goodbye, sister." The real Nyx raised her blade. And then Kai shot her in the back. The real Nyx staggered. Her body glitched. "No. Impossible. Nyx forced herself to her feet. "You never understood," she whispered. She lunged forward, driving her plasma knife into the real Nyx's chest. The real Nyx froze. Her eyes flickered. And then she collapsed. Nyx stood over her fallen counterpart. Her past, her shadow. Kai walked to her side. "It's over." Nyx looked out over the city. "No," she whispered. It's just beginning. She had won, but the city was still burning. And there were always new enemies waiting in the dark. The city was changing again. With the real Nyx gone, a new war had begun. Kai sat beside Nyx in their safe house, watching as new factions rose from the ruins. What do we do now? Nyx smiled, her violet neon eyes glowing. Whatever the hell we want. And in the distance, the next storm was already brewing. Because in the neon shadows, the war was never really over. The city was hers. With the real Nyx gone, the power vacuum left behind had sucked in warlords, gang leaders, ag-controlled factions, and X-Spectre operatives. But none of them mattered. Nyx had won the battle. And now, she was going to win the war. Kai sat across from her, watching as she uploaded her neural signature into the city's mainframe. You sure about this? He asked. Nyx's violet neon eyes flickered. This city needs a ruler. So you're just going to become another Meridian? Nyx froze at his words. Meridian had controlled the city with absolute power. And now, she was stepping into that role. No, she finally said. I'll be better. Kai didn't look convinced. That's what they all say, but it didn't matter. Nyx had already made her choice. She wasn't going to let the city fall into chaos. If no one else could fix it, she would. One by one, the rival factions fell. Nyx moved through the underworld like a storm, the warlords who refused to kneel. Eliminated, the AI cults that sought control. Deleted, the rogue Spectre agents. Reprogrammed or executed, and soon the city was silent. Long live the Neon Queen. That's what they called her now, the savior who became a ruler. Her rebellion had ended, and she sat on the throne. But with absolute power came a heavy cost. Nyx had spent her entire life fighting against control. Now, she was the one in control. And she could feel it, the weight, the corruption, the creeping sense of losing herself. Kai had left. I won't be part of this, he had said before walking away. She didn't stop him, because deep down, she knew he was right. She wasn't the same person anymore. Years passed. Nyx had reshaped the city in her image. But the people were afraid of her. They whispered about her rule. She's becoming like Meridian. She sees everything. She never sleeps. Is she even human anymore? She had built a perfect city. No more crime, no more rebellion. Only order, but in doing so, she had erased the very thing she fought for. You've become a tyrant. The voice pulled her from her thoughts. Kai stood in front of her again, older, worn, a leader of the last resistance. Nyx stared at him from her throne of steel and neon. This city needs me. No, Kai said softly. It needs to be free. Nyx clenched her fists. She knew what came next. She had seen it happen to Meridian. She had seen it happen to Spectre. And now it was happening to her. She was the villain now, and Kai had come to end her. The resistance stormed the central tower. Nyx fought like a demon. Her enhanced body moved faster than any human. Her systems controlled every drone, every defense turret, every part of the city. But even she couldn't stop them all. Kai led the charge. The last man who had ever truly known her. And as the tower collapsed in flames, he faced her one last time. You could have walked away. So could you. Nyx whispered. Kai raised his weapon. Nyx didn't move. She had ruled. She had built her empire. And now, like all rulers before her, she would fall. A single shot. A single flash of neon light. And then darkness. The Neon Queen was dead. The city was free once more. But even in death, her legend remained. Some called her a tyrant, some called her a savior. But all remembered her name, and in the neon lights of the city, her story was whispered like a ghost. Because power never truly dies, it just waits for someone new to claim it.